mother, Catherine Isabella Featherstone Sanders, was an amazing and extraordinary woman, and she lived an amazing and extraordinary life. She was born in 1926, and she was unusual from day one. Being the sixth child, she had 5 brothers and sisters who were blonde and blue-eyed. While she was a child with an olive complexion, dark skin and dark eyes. Her unconventional life in general differed dramatically from her siblings, most of whom stayed in the UK contentedly. She had a tough childhood, growing up in the Blitz in London. Her mother would not allow her to be evacuated to the countryside, nor to go to the underground station during the bombing. So she spent many nights under the stairs, listening to the bombs falling all around. As a result, she suffered from shell shock all her life. Towards the end of the war, she was persuaded by her eldest sister to take up the career of radiography. The motivation was that the job resulted in a pension at age 60. She went to train at Guy's Hospital in London, and throughout her life, she worked as a radiographer all over the world. London, New York, Paris, and then in Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Transkei, Joburg General, and the last 14 years of her working life were at Gray's Hospital in Pietermaritzburg, where she worked until she was 76, and where she made some wonderful friends, some of whom are here today. Following her move to Salisbury from UK in the late 1950s, she met my father, Peter Sanders, at a party where he was apparently entranced by her gypsy looks, her dark hair and skin, and her big earrings. Little did she know that she was casting her lot in with an utterly nomadic man. It was 28 moves later that they ended up in Pietermaritzburg. We moved most years. If Dad liked his job, we just moved house in the same town. But often we were moving to a different town or a different country. Anne and I went to 6 schools, and the total is only so low because most of our schooling was at boarding school. It was a marriage that was hard to understand from the outside. They seemed to always be at each other's throats. But after he died, she remarked to me that since he died, she had not had a good argument with anyone. And I realized that the hurly-burly of their marriage had suited them perfectly and that they had adored each other. One incident I remember is when they lived at Blackridge. The driveway was very steep. She got out of the car, she opened the gate, and she had forgotten to put the handbrake on. She nearly got run over as the car plowed past. It rolled down the hill, and it ended up in a tree. The car had to be craned out of the tree. And when my father came home from work that night, he tried to question her. She said, "If I want to drive my car into a tree, I will." Catherine coped with the constant moving with her signature behavior, which was to rise to the occasion. So 28 times Anne and I witnessed the extreme experience of watching her pack up a home, move us along. Within days, she would have unpacked enough and hung the pictures, so every house immediately felt like a home. Between all of this, being a wife, a mother, moving constantly, working full-time, being self-sufficient in vegetables long before it was fashionable, and making all of our clothes, including embarrassingly overlarge blue regulation convent school bloomers, she was creating beautiful things. She was knitting, she was embroidering, she was doing macrame, she was drying flowers, she was sewing. Her relentless drive to be creative amazed me even as a child. One of the best things for her about retiring at last at age 76 was having so much time for craft and creativity. We counted 27 hand-knit sweaters when we opened her cupboard. Catherine loved to travel. Periodically, she would embark on epic trips to visit all the friends she had made over the years and all over the world. She had a great gift for long-term friendships, and some dated back to school days. This might not seem like a big deal in this age of instant accessibility, But it was a big deal in an age when the post between Europe and Africa took 3 months. One of the mainstays of her life was her faith and her devotion to the Catholic Church that she was born into. Her faith only faltered once briefly when, after 4 miscarriages, she stopped going to church. My father was strongly agnostic, but he nevertheless had an innate understanding of the value of her faith to her. After watching her avoid church for a few months, one Sunday he bundled her into the car and persuaded her reluctantly back into the church. She was immediately back on her bike, and her faith has been her mainstay ever since. So my aim with this talk was to provide you with an understanding of how many rich threads there were in her life, and with how much energy and enthusiasm she pursued each one. Her retirement to Golden Pond when my father died 16 years ago was where all these threads merged into a beautiful picture. She moved to Golden Pond very quickly after my father's death, and we were very concerned about the rush. But what a great decision it turned out to be. She arrived there exhausted from a life lived at full tilt. She was sad and grieving. She was lonely and very suspicious. What she found was a safe home, a haven to put down roots for probably the first time in her life, and a community of people who accepted her in spite of her abrasive manner and her habit of doing and saying exactly as she pleased. This community seemed to enjoy the fact that while you always knew where you stood with her, you also could never predict what she might say or do next. To have found such a home in her late 70s was an amazing gift. And to the very last breath of her life, she was buoyed by love and support in a way that has awed Anne and I. I would like to leave you with a story that I think epitomizes the spirit of who our mother was. For her 80th birthday, the family gathered from far and wide.
90th.
90th. We had a luncheon for her, and we tried to tell her she should relax, that we would take care of everything. She tried. She really did try. But late morning, she could stand it no more, and she sprung into action. She got some of her homegrown rhubarb from the freezer, and she made 2 large crumbles. They were delicious. Have you ever heard of a 90th birthday, where the birthday girl not only made the pudding, but from food that she had grown herself? That was our mother. When our father died, the death notice that she put together ended with the phrase, "There will never be another you." The thing is, Mum, we feel the same way about you. There will never be another you.